message for the ladies and gentlemen around the world and all the ships at sea.
We all make choices, but in the end, our choices make us.
So choose wisely. Subscribe to It's Erik Nagel wherever shows are found, on whatever platform you choose. And as always, leave us a positive review. Would you kindly?
I installed the SSD just fine, which was the part I was worried about. And I was like, it's going to be easy to move Windows 10 over there. Not in the least. So I tried moving it over. A clean install didn't work. So I was like, all right, I'll just clone the drive and then delete the old drive. And it was fine. And then my computer went to sleep one day and never woke up.
Oh, no. Just like Grandma.
Just like I would wish I could.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Erik Nagel. And it starts now.
What up, my Nagel? 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 Talking about George R.R. Martin, not writing. Talking Marvel vs. DC, who's more exciting? Talking George Lucas's legacy, high-scoring centipede. Talking Gittles' new beef burrito recipe. Talking about Stephanie McMahon versus Sable. Talking about the Cybermen versus the Weeping Angels. Don't blink, the dialect's more deadly than you think. Talking summer ale, blueberry pale, craft beer, pouring drinks. What up, my Nagel? Deadpool 2 features Cable. Talking Funko Pop, celebrity signed a label. Talking online gaming, bitchin' ain't complaining. Talking E-Rock, kissing the feet of Matt Groening. Warner Brothers properties, Superman's a mockery. Weird Al concerts, Kevin Smith's debauchery. Rick and Morty fun zone. The Lego build team, can I have your attention? Possible Donkey Kong kill screen. What up, my Nagel? What up, my Nagel? What up, my Nagel? What up, my Nagel?
Ladies and gentlemen of the universe, the next voice you hear.
It's Erik Nagel.
Hello and welcome to another edition of It's Erik Nagel. That is me. Over in the upside down is Gittles.
What up, buddy?
And joining us today, our friend. He hasn't been on the show in a long time. I think the last time we talked to him was New York Comic Con. Our pal,
God, yeah, it's been that long.
Our pal Brian Shea from Game Informer, the leading industry magazine, website, blog posts, opinion pieces, all of that stuff involving the video game world. They're the number one. Gittles, the number one. He's joining us.
Top.
Here. Yes, he's joining us today for a lot of stuff that we need to talk about in just a moment. Phone lines open, 651-SMITHERS, that's 651-764-8437, and across the board on social media, it's Erik Nagel. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and by the way, thank you so much, everybody who's been going to our YouTube channel to subscribe, and as we call it, set it and forget it. We just need to get over the 1,000 threshold so we can do some other things, and we're almost there. So hopefully, maybe this will be the week that we cross that threshold. Maybe next week, who knows? But if you're listening to this show, just go, even if you don't have a YouTube account, just set up a dummy account and subscribe to us, and then you can forget about it. You never have to interact with it ever again.
Yeah, or give me your email and I'll do it for you. Don't worry.
Give them all your password, your social security, and your bank cards.
Yeah, I know this Nigerian prince. Don't worry.
Right. We have a lot of stuff that we need to get off of Amazon for our studio, so that would definitely help us if you could provide all that information to us. Anyway, so yes, welcome to the program. We're going to get into Brian Shea's stuff and video game stuff. A lot has happened in the last week or so that we need to discuss, but I just want to start off the show with something that was brought to my attention by our pal Trevor, who was not on the show last week.
He was not.
I apparently misspoke, and I found when he sent it to me, I found it really funny for what exactly I said. So while we were talking in a segment last week about New York State's Governor Cuomo, about things that were going on with him as far as the film tax incentive, the legalization of marijuana in the state of New York, budget concerns and issues, and we were talking about how once New Jersey passes that, I believe they had the vote, or it was being put up.
It was postponed.
It was postponed. I knew it was something this week. And once New Jersey gets it passed, that New York will just follow suit because they're going to have to at this point. I said it's been delayed so long under the governorship of Richard Christie, which, if you don't know who Richard Christie is, he's a very nice guy. I've known him for many years, but he's one of the producers / characters on the Howard Stern show. I meant to say Governor Chris Christie for the state of New Jersey, the former Republican governor of the fine state of New Jersey. So that was on me, and I just needed to make that correction. I don't apologize for it because it was really funny, but I did want to point out that I did say the wrong name.
So the thing is, I heard it live, but I thought you were just talking about some guy who was like running the marijuana legalization thing who is named Richard Christie. And I was like, oh, he's probably related to Chris Christie, that fat bastard. I didn't realize you just misspoke.
Yes, I misspoke. But anyway, I think the state of New Jersey could have benefited, seriously, had Richard Christie been the governor instead.
Oh, yeah.
Or we just would have went down in flames. It was a 50-50 shot that I would have voted for either way.
It couldn't have turned out any worse.
No, it could not have. Anyway, so here's what we're going to do. We have our pal Brian Shea here with us, and it's great to talk to him. There's been a lot going on in the world of video game and entertainment news that we need to defer to the experts, and that would be our pal Brian, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot people don't know about, and there's a lot of information that just hit us all at once that we kind of need to sift through and figure out how all this is going to work out. Brian Shea is here with us. Brian, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Couldn't be better. It's been so long. Like I said, New York Comic Con back in October was the last time we got a chance to talk to you.
That's crazy to think about. I mean, we used to talk all the time. What happened to us?
You became a bigwig and you traveled the world in the 7 seas. Everybody's looking for Brian Shea.
It's just where in the world is Brian Shea? It's the new hit PC game.
It sounds great.
Brian P. Shea on Twitter and Instagram. Brian's fun to watch, to read his stuff late at night. Because when he's not working, he's doing his job is to play video games. So I guess technically he's always working, even when he's at home playing video games.
Market research.
But Brian posts one of 4 categories. Video game stuff, his outfit and his hair, the food that he's eating, or issues with the UFC. And it doesn't even matter if there's not a UFC fight happening at the time. Brian will tweet late at night about something going on there, and I go, oh, something's happening in the UFC. Thanks to Brian. Now I need to go look it up.
Yeah, man, that's like the other big passion that I have. Like, it's like video games, music, and UFC, like MMA in general. Like, I don't know. I've become obsessed with it. And yeah, I follow probably as many like MMA fighters and MMA journalists as I do like video game journalists at this point on Instagram and Twitter.
Wow, man, that's awesome. I never got into MMA stuff, but it seems cool.
Yeah, I'm all in. I have like all the subscription services. I have I buy all the pay-per-views. So yeah, it's an expensive hobby.
But it's a healthy hobby, because Brian also very svelte young man. He does go out and work out. He does boxing and all the things that most people just don't normally want to bother themselves with. But having an interest in the UFC and video games isn't, like, back in the day would never go hand in hand. That's like the jocks and the nerds hanging out together kind of deal. But now more so that the UFC has video games that come out every year. So it kind of makes sense now that a lot of the video game culture and people working in that industry would cross over to some sports categories.
Yeah, and I mean, also there's a lot of gamers in the UFC, like Demetrius Johnson, who unfortunately just left the UFC. He is like a Twitch streamer. Daniel Cormier, who's the heavyweight champion, is a big gamer. Stipe Miocic, I've interviewed him. He's the former heavyweight champion. And unfortunately, I think it's a little bit of a curse because every time I interview a UFC fighter, like a dominant champion, they always go on to lose their next fight.
Oh no! So you gotta like interview the person that you don't want to win, like interview them.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I even interviewed. I had an interview with Dana White, who's the president of the UFC, and
he lost the presidency the next game.
Well, that week was when Conor McGregor threw a dolly through a bus window, and he had to deal with that whole mess, and like the entire card just fell apart. Like a fighter got injured and they had to find a last minute replacement, and then he was ruled medically unable to continue with his weight cut, so they had to find another guy to pull in at the last second. So yeah, it was probably the most chaotic, hellacious week of his career right after the interview with me. So I think
who ends up in the ring? It's just like some guy from the stands like, eating a hot dog, like that guy, and he's like, just gets the shit beat out of him.
Is this a wrestling gimmick?
It was Long Island's own Ally Aquinta.
This is what's interesting about UFC, because obviously it's never been more popular than it's been in the last 10 years, mixed martial art fighting, but UFC being the frontier of as far as organizing an organization of the sport. It's amazing that you get a lot of these world-class fighters and how fragile their card lineups can be if one particular fight does not happen. Like if they've been promoting something for a while and say there's a physical injury, or say like the Conor McGregor thing, which is not foreseen, so an unforeseen incident, now they remove from the card and then the whole thing collapses. Now, people say what they want about wrestling, but if you had a headliner, say back in the day, if Stone Cold Steve Austin or John Cena or The Rock couldn't be the headliner for that particular pay-per-view, they'd find a story or something to work it in, or they'd find somebody that would be a crowd favorite to just kind of place in there to do so, and it wouldn't really damage the pay-per-view a whole hell of a lot. It's just weird that when you don't have that scripted stuff and that built-in fan base per character, if you will, that when a fighter can't do it, especially with the women's division now gaining so much popularity in the UFC, that if one of those headliners can't do it, that nobody seems to care, and the buy rates just drop.
Well, that's the problem also, is that since it's a sanctioned sport, the athletic commissions can say, oh, you're not like in sufficient shape to do this, or you can't continue cutting weight to make the weight cut. So you have to be in the same weight class. You have to both weigh around or below, if it's like the featherweight championship, you have to weigh below 145 pounds or at 145 pounds.
Well, perhaps Dana should take a page from Vince. Perhaps Dana should take a page from Vince McMahon and say, "Look, I don't think you're going to be qualified enough to have this championship bout unless you go through this gauntlet match, and they got to fight 3 other fighters before they can go for the title." I think people would pay for that card. It's like, let's see if he can get through 3 other fighters. If he can do that, then he can wrestle. He can fight at the end of the night for the championship.
Well, that's the other thing is I've gone to precisely one professional wrestling match or event in my entire life. It was tables, ladders, and chairs last year.
Oh my.
And that was when they had the big, I think it was a meningitis outbreak.
Okay.
And so they had, I think Roman Reigns was supposed to be in one match, and then he had to pull out. So they had Kurt Angle fill in or something. That was Kurt Angle's big comeback.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
And they had like 3 or 4 matches that had like a different guy in it on like less than a week's notice. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Like, they can just kind of plug and play with their superstars how they see fit. And that's a luxury of like you said, like a scripted product where you can kind of like be like, all right, well, that's not going to work for that guy. But yeah, you can bring this guy in, and he doesn't have to go through like an 8-week training camp in order to be ready for this fight.
Yeah, this was back in 2017. I forgot all about this. I looked up, and yeah, they had this faction called the Shield. And
oh yeah, that's right, 2017. Wow.
The main person who does the power bomb for their whole team move is Roman Reigns, and he was out, so they did dress up Kurt Angle in all black to kind of put him in that little faction there to have him complete the match and the card that they had going on there. But yeah, it all hit at once. I think it was AJ Styles also got it, and Finn Balor, or something.
He filled in for
Finn Balor, I think, right? Or
Finn
Bray
Balor
Wyatt.
Was actually the guy he wrestled.
Then it was Bray Wyatt.
Finn Balor was who was it?
Bray Wyatt, when he was doing the Wyatt family. I think it was, because I remember that match.
That was the best one of the night.
Yeah. Well, Finn Balor's amazing, and so is AJ Styles. They're very athletic and high-flying, tiny guys.
That was also Asuka's first WWE match.
Right. So no desire to go back and see everything again. Like WrestleMania's coming up in about a week.
Yeah, I saw first female headline WrestleMania, right?
Yeah. Now, for
Charlotte Flair, Ronda Rousey, and
Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch.
For people who don't know what that means and why this is such a big deal, normally WrestleMania, used to have the big main event at what closes the show. It's the last match of the show. But then when they expanded it to 4 hours plus 2-3 hours of a pre-show, it's like a 7-hour ordeal, like it's Super Bowl size programming, that you would have like 2, maybe 3 main events. But they were spaced out. Like one main event would be in the middle of the card, and the other one would be the one that closes the show. The reason why this is such a big deal, in the last 2 years, WWE has really been pushing the women's card to the forefront of everything. And now they're going to be the match that ends the program at night. So that'll be the final match that you see is Ronda Rousey, for those who don't know, former UFC champion who's been in the WWE for the last year. It's been teased for a couple of years now that she would come over and do something, but in the last year, last year's WrestleMania, she showed up and has been doing everything solid for a year. Charlotte Flair is Ric Flair's daughter, and Becky Lynch is an Irish wrestler who is very popular right now in the WWE, and it's pretty much one of the biggest matches they have where everybody's actually talking about it. I've been seeing all over the news. I saw ESPN broke the story about it, but it's been all over the place. It's amazing pushing this female, not agenda, but just this female equivalency to the male superstars has really done wonders for the WWE.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine it brings in a whole new audience. With, especially with a big name like Ronda Rousey that they can lead with, somebody who was at one point the most recognizable name in any sport, like she was up there with like the LeBron Jameses of the world in terms of just mainstream popularity and mainstream recognition. So, I mean, that's a godsend for them if they were hoping it's to elevate the women's divisions up to that level of popularity. So, I mean, good on them.
Her husband showed up a couple weeks ago on Raw.
Yeah, Travis Brown.
I couldn't think of his name. Is he's a fighter too, or?
Yeah, he's a heavyweight in the UFC.
Is he still participating in the UFC, or is he done?
I think it's been a while since he's fought, but yeah, he's fought in the past couple of years for sure.
The UFC has some great fighters, but anybody becomes a name, they have a very short shelf life.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Conor McGregor
just the shit out of him.
Yeah, like Conor McGregor just tweeted out that he's retiring. Nobody knows what really to make of that.
Well, see, that's also interesting too, because he was just on the Tonight Show the other night, and he was telling Fallon that
Tonight Show and tweeted.
Yeah, because he said on the Tonight Show though that he may have something in July.
Yeah,
and then that tweet came out saying, "Nope, I'm retired."
Maybe that was.
I'm wondering if it's a negotiation tactic.
It has to be because
he's done it before.
Yeah, well, for those who don't know, Conor McGregor is probably the biggest name currently and in a long time for the UFC. Everybody's fascinated by him, and he's not just a character per se. He is what he is, but he was undefeated for the longest time. He held 2 championships, which is unheard
he was
of.
The first ever 2-time simultaneous champion.
Right, and he's the perfect person to have as a mouthpiece for any industry, because he doesn't shut up. He does trash talk and he does back it up. He's a short, I don't want to say scrawny, but compared to a lot of other big UFC people, he's a shrimp. He's a short little guy for the UFC, but he'll destroy you. And
yeah, I mean, he won his championships at 145 pounds and 155 pounds. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's a smaller guy.
He's an amazing personality, the likes you don't normally see coming out of the MMA. Like, he's almost a wrestling character.
I mean, that's when he tweeted that he was retiring, I got an email in my inbox with that him going to the WWE was like the betting favorite in Vegas for like what his next move would be.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, he is so rich at this point. I don't know if he needs to do any of that. I think he'll come back at some point, though. I honestly don't think this retirement sticks forever.
I think you're right on that. I think the retirement is a ploy for negotiation tactic. I don't think he's ready to go over to do anything with the WWE. And the point you brought up about him he makes a ton of money. And
I mean, he doesn't have empire now.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do anything. But what's one of the few things that when you're a millionaire, a billionaire, you have all the money in the world. When buying stuff and owning stuff doesn't satisfy you anymore, it's you crave the attention. The draw of an audience and the press and all of stuff. So when you lose that seems to become more valuable to you than all the money, which solves all your other problems. So when all your other problems are solved, you go nuts because you don't have the attention anymore. So say he does retire. He takes some time off. at some point he would come over to the WWE just because it would be a spectacle. Just so he could shoot his mouth off, he could talk, he could be, featured on all the sports programs and entertainment programs and what have you. And that means
from a boatload of money too.
Oh yeah, of course they would.
Oh yeah, he'd be rolling in it. WWE would just throw cash at him,
throw money at him.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar, a former, like 2 times, right, with the UFC, he's won it twice.
He was only. I mean, he was champion. I think he had 1 stint as champion. He came back another time, but he won that fight, and then he was. I
thought he had the belt twice. You could be right
because of performance enhancing.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. Well, he won the first, his first title, and then he lost to Cain Velasquez,
who is actually now making the leap to professional wrestling. He is doing an in-ring performance. He is confirmed.
That's what I heard.
Forget which promotion it is. It's not WWE though.
So all these UFC guys, it's the cool thing to do with the MMA audience is to shit on wrestling. But wrestling is you're extending your career when you can't do the physical onslaught of UFC and MMA fighting. We're doing wrestling, as grueling as wrestling schedule is, that's a vacation compared to what they have to go through for UFC training. You've seen all kinds of documentaries with fighters and whatnot about how they're pretty much, their diet is next to nothing. They're working out 24 hours a day. They're trying to lose all this water weight and everything else just to qualify for a certain weight class. Traveling around the world doing wrestling where you wrestle 1 match a night for an insane contract just because you were a name at the other in the other place is the way a lot of big UFC people, if there is any big UFC people anymore, because Conor is pretty much it. Like, I don't know any of the other names in those people.
Do you know John Jones?
Yeah, but he's an asshole, isn't he?
Well, he's back champion now.
Oh man, wasn't he the one? Didn't he just get busted for drug being positive or something?
I don't want to get into it.
He got busted for being positive.
It's a whole thing where like
you change your demeanor, sir, or you cannot be champion.
Yeah. He has like residuals from a prior test that are still in his system. They're like long-term metabolites that will just stick in his system indefinitely. So they're saying that he would be getting popped for the same thing he was previously popped for. So they're not suspending him. But yeah, it was a whole ordeal that dominated every single MMA podcast I listened to for about a month. So it's a whole thing. But yeah, he's back as champion. He's fighting in July, that card that Conor wanted to be on.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I love every minute of it. I watch every single fight that the UFC shows. I've even subscribed to DAZN, which is Bellator's, which is like the kind of the second MMA promotion in the United States. I've subscribed to their service as well, so I'm all in with this sport.
Did you hop over to ESPN now that all the UFC stuff's going to ESPN Plus?
Oh yeah, I'm on ESPN Plus almost every weekend because they have a card. This is like the 7th or 8th week in a row they're having a card.
Right. And that's when I saw all that, when the ESPN put that app out and all the information about what could be coming to that app, and then UFC announces that they're doing all their pay-per-views exclusively on the ESPN app, it got me thinking, like, we talked not too long ago, we talked about Ultraviolet, which is the digital streaming service for movies. When you buy a movie and it comes with a digital copy along with your physical copy, it was more likely than not, it was the Ultraviolet service. So you could stream it for everywhere and not have to actually physically own it. It was in a wallet in the sky for you.
And now they're closing, right?
Well, yeah, they're closing down.
Now, Movies Anywhere is the new one, right?
Well, Movies Anywhere and Vudu are the ones that you just associate. You'll keep your library. If you go into your Ultraviolet and sign in,
you can like download it or whatever.
Well, you associate it to other services so that this way, when they shut down, they migrate it over to the other services. So you still keep everything. You just have to take that extra step, which is not that hard. Anyway, so Ultraviolet's closing down. But now, because UFC made that jump and that deal with ESPN Plus, there's no point of having pay-per-view anymore. That pay-per-view
you still have
service.
To buy the pay-per-view. Like,
yeah, but
you can
buy
it through ESPN
you buy it
Plus.
through the app, but it's not pay-per-view that's running it anymore.
You're right. Yeah, it's called a pay-per-view just because, like, just like if you go into a restaurant, you say, "I want a Coke,"
because it's been just like right, and you say, "Oh, did you tape this?" Even though you're not taping anything anymore, everything is, "Did you tape this?" The pay-per-view, for people who don't know, pay-per-view in the United States this paid to play kind of program where if before even all the streaming stuff was out, if you wanted to watch a movie before it was available as a physical media, that you could buy your VHS tape, or concerts or boxing or other sports presentations, you would pay a certain amount of money to unscramble the channel so you could watch it on the night of that live spectacle.
Or you just watch it through the fuzz like I did in middle school.
Right, where it's like, is Macho Man blue? What's going on here?
That's how I watched Goldberg lose for the first time.
In the squiggle vision?
Kevin Nash power bombing him after, what was it, Scott Hall tased him?
Yep. But pay-per-view was the only system that you had to watch these events. And pay-per-view was owned by a family. They owned the whole pay-per-view service. So all these organizations had to go through this family service if you wanted to distribute your live events or movies through, to the rest of the world. You had to go through this family, and they made a killing of it. Now, UFC was like the last thing left for pay-per-view, other than boxing that's not on Showtime or HBO, which I don't see the need for going to pay-per-view anymore for these things, especially the fees that they had to pay just to put their events on there. So UFC was pretty much keeping this thing alive, and now that UFC has moved over to this other platform where you still pay the money to watch the fight, but you don't need that particular service anymore. It's just interesting about how some of these things that were just so commonplace, just with somebody figures out one thing and go, oh, everybody goes over there, and this thing's now completely dead.
Like Blockbuster.
Oh yeah, that last one put up a good fight, and finally it went.
I love Blockbuster.
I miss Blockbuster.
When they went out of business in the city, I went through and just bought so many DVDs, so many DVDs and things, and they were all
and now
so
you're
cheap.
spending all the money to replace them with Blu-rays.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I'm not even replacing with Blu-rays. I'm like, I'll just pay $10 a month for a streaming service and watch them. I don't need to own them. I have too many DVDs.
You have too many DVDs.
You have a whole wall.
I do.
It's like the Library of Congress for DVDs in Eric's basement.
I finally caved and I got a binder because I realized I have 5 tubs of DVDs in my basement.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I just need to buy one of those disc binders. I got rid of every single DVD case.
You
put them all on those sleeves.
You bought the 520 Case Logic jumbo book.
Yep. That's what I have. I have 2 of those.
Yeah.
And I have the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Star Wars still in their case, and the series that I really like John Wick, I still have those in their cases, the Blu-rays. But
yeah, if you don't need the cases and you still want to own the physical media, the book is definitely the way to go. Yes, that thing. And look, is that the
filled with just DVDs?
No, but now here's the thing. Oh, he doesn't have his headphones on.
Sweet sound.
Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you now.
So is that the canvas book, or did you spend the extra money for the leather book?
No, this is just the cheap Trapper Keeper style. But I realized I didn't have enough room, so there's 4 DVDs in each one.
Right.
This thing is completely overpacked.
Just buy another one. They're $15.
I know.
It's funny you brought that up because I have a bunch of empty ones here if you want them.
Look, they just broke. There's just sleeves falling out everywhere. I don't even know what this is. Look. Lord of the Rings special edition. I don't know. I'm not watching this.
Throw it out at the homeless guys under the overpass there. It's here, you'll get a Blu-ray player someplace to go with your king-size bedroom.
Yeah, and they can take fashion tips from The Hobbit.
There you go. But I was cleaning out some of these books the other day as I was redoing the studio, and I'm finding old software and then old O&A stuff in there. And I'm looking. I found AOL discs.
Oh yeah,
were in there. I found Office 2007. I
was enjoying your Instagram.
3 hours.
What, Brian?
Wasn't it your Instagram or was it Twitter that you were posting all that stuff?
I was posting it on my Instagram, IHeartRadio on Instagram. You could check some of it out. Then I found the Nero, which was the CD burning program that you needed at one point.
I forgot about that.
And what else was on there? A Norton startup disc. Before you had to download it, you had to have the startup disc in order to download the software. Yeah, I found all this stuff. I said, there's no reason to keep... I find a reason to keep old adapters and cables, because at some point you may have some old equipment you need to patch into the newer stuff. But these old discs, there's nothing on this coating that I'll ever use, so in the garbage it goes. But I have a lot of those Case Logic books. If you want them, please take them off my hands.
Yeah, that's what mine is. Yeah, I'll take one.
Some of them are the leather ones. And the reason why I asked if you got the leather ones, because when you work for companies and you said, hey, I need some of these books. Okay, well, go and order and then just have send us the order and we'll order it for you. So I'd always get the expensive ones. It's like, why not? Because why would I be cost effective for any company that I work? It's just spend all the money. I need
the leather. It's not gonna. I don't know if it's gonna go with the decor of my room, Eric.
I know, or my office.
Yeah,
how it'll hold up in the studio.
I could put my 4 Xbox games in it.
There you go. All right, let's move on to the more important issues of the week, which is why we have our pal Brian Shea here with us from Game Informer magazine. And I don't know how much longer is the magazine actually going to last before you're all digital.
I mean, our physical copies are still getting about 3.5, I think 4 million subscribers.
That's amazing.
So, we still have a pretty hefty group liking the physical copies.
It's got to be because of the artwork.
I mean, it looks great in print. Like, it's funny because we'll have a cover and I'll be like, all right, this is a cool cover. And then it'll come out in the print and we'll get our box of issues and I'll be like, wow, this looks so much better in print than it does like on my screen.
Yeah.
Which, that's just the advantage. I mean, I love tactile stuff. I know I run the digital version of our issue, but I love the physical issues a lot. Like I mean, who knows? Like maybe people will really catch on fire about digital magazines now that Apple's kind of all in with it. Because to this point, it's been like, all right, digital magazines have existed for a long time, but like nobody's really it hasn't really caught fire like people thought they would. People were like, oh, well, this is the end of print magazines as we know it with digital magazines on like iPads and stuff. But like, while ours is really awesome, I think I'll tell you that I think that the tablet version of our digital magazine is the best way to experience Game Informer. And that's just because we have so many great features. It's up on your awesome tablet screen. And you don't have to sit at your computer. You can just kind of relax on the couch like you would reading a normal magazine, but it has all the interactive elements of a digital version. That said, I absolutely adore print. Like, I don't know. There's just something awesome about it.
Well, it's just great because, like, I find, like, if I'm going on the Long Island Railroad or I'm getting on a train or something like that, I'm looking for a magazine to read. Like, I'll usually pick up, like, some sort of gaming magazine because I could just read it and, have it on the train, then I have it on me. But I think it's also, like, I used to subscribe to, like, Nintendo Power when I was a kid.
Yeah, we all did.
And I don't know, I think there's just something kind of, like, nostalgic about having, like, that paper copy and being like, oh, I got, like, all the codes and, you go to the pages. I don't know. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I had all those subscriptions as well. I had everything from Nintendo Power and Game Informer to official Dreamcast magazine, which didn't last very long.
Sega Dreamcast.
And you see like all the letters to the editor with like some kid's picture of Sonic he drew. And
we still have that to this day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just a hand turkey with blue. Look at Sonic, red shoes. Passes. Yeah, good enough. I have some of actually I have one of the magazines framed somewhere over here is the BioShock Infinite issue with Songbird on it. And another one I have saved, I'm thinking of framing it, was the cover art. It was front and back cover for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Nice.
Oh yeah, some of these covers we have are just absolutely gorgeous. And the Breath of the Wild one's one of my favorites. I want to get that. Actually, no, I do have that poster size.
Oh, very nice.
Because we go to GameStop Expo every year and we sign autographs for attendees. Like it's an appearance. And every year they choose different ones different covers to blow up to poster size for us to sign. And the year that I did it, it was Breath of the Wild on one side and Call of Duty World War II on the other side. And I'm like, totally grabbing one of these for myself. So yeah, I have one of those waiting to frame.
Too bad they don't make like a two-sided frame like they do the open and close sign on the front of a bodega where it can just spin around and you see both.
You get the ones they have at the bus stop. It's on like the mechanical thing, so it's like, and every 5 minutes it just switches to the other one.
Just get a digital picture frame at that point.
I guess, but we're trying to stay away from that digital, that nice print.
We're going old school with this one. Anyway, enough about fancy magazines and artwork and whatnot. We need to talk about some video game stuff that's been going on here. First, we'll talk about the Google presentation that came out. Now, Google was announcing some things, and it's just amazing that as big a company as Google is, just doesn't have the draw or the showmanship that Apple does for their presentations. Like everybody was waiting, like it was trending online, waiting. 1 o'clock, a big Apple conference, and everybody's on the Mac rumor sites and what have you, things of that nature, where they're going on, what do you think it could be? I think it's going to be a new phone. I think it's going to be this. I'm going to think that. With the Google presentation I see on social media, what is Google doing? Like, what do they have coming out? It's like, I don't know, Chrome 4? There was no real big speculation as to what what Google was going to do.
Yeah, you never know what Google's going to do. You always know what Apple's going to do.
Right. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes Apple will be leaking some stuff. Insiders will be leaking some stuff. And then all of a sudden they throw you a curve with one little thing that you did not expect.
Yeah.
And that's showmanship. I mean, that's the whole thing that Tim Apple set up right now. No, not Tim Apple.
Tim Apple.
That Steve Jobs has set up, that whole presentation and showmanship and like a P.T. Barnum kind of atmosphere for when Apple's going to introduce these new products that are going to revolutionize the world, hopefully. Google's just, hey, we can do that too. We're across the street from the, WWE's over at the Coliseum, and we're at the high school gym over here. If you want to see a wrestling show, you're a $1 billion company that just I don't know. Sometimes they put so much stuff out, and it always seems to fail. Like they're now closing up Google Plus, which I never liked to begin with.
I thought they closed that like a year ago.
No, there was some notices as
it's like closing in 2 days.
Yeah,
they announced it was closing like a year ago, or 6 months ago.
I keep getting flooded. If you have a Gmail account, you were probably getting flooded at least a month. Every month, you would get an update saying, "Reminder to move your stuff over off of Google Plus or download your stuff because once it's down, it's deleted and you can't get that stuff anymore."
Thank God.
And I was like,
posts I ever made.
Yeah, I didn't want
cool. This is Google Plus.
Google Plus, where you had your circle of friends and then your circle of interests. And I said, this is just too complicated and stupid. I don't want Google Plus. And then if you built a YouTube channel, it was linked to your Google Plus. No, I just put all my settings here. Now I got to go over there and change all the settings because now you're going to put out all our personal information with the account over here, but you can have it private over here. It was just a whole mess. No one gave a shit about it. Just like the Google glasses. They looked kind of cool. They weren't practical. And the market dictated that this was garbage. But they released this video game system, which in theory looks amazing. It's an amazing concept. I just still don't think that we can do this yet, where their new system is you have a controller, but you don't have a console. You stream your gaming and all your other stuff through their service, but the entire United States doesn't have the infrastructure to support all of that. Places but there's a lot of places, a lot of rural places. Look, you have your phone and you go into a New York City building that's, these old buildings that are iron and lead, and you lose your connection the second you go up the staircase. It's like, how are you going to stream video games in an old apartment? That's why you need the console. So it's a great theory. I just don't think the infrastructure's there yet.
Yeah, the internet infrastructure of the United States just varies so greatly. Like you can have unbelievable connection one state and then like drive 30 miles out of the city and you can barely watch YouTube, Like, so basically, the way it works is anything that has can run Chrome will be able to stream a game, and they say that they can get zero latency. I think the numbers that they threw out there were like, you need like 20 megabytes per second download for 1080p, or 30 megabytes per second download for 4K, which that's fair enough. Like that's not that awful. And they said like the tagline or something, like his pitch was like, if you can have a really good experience on YouTube today, you can have a great experience on Stadia, which is the streaming service.
Yeah.
And in theory, that's fine. I can watch a YouTube video just fine right now. But like, there's so much more involved with gaming than like sitting there and watching a video. You have to also be concerned with the upload speeds because your input determines everything that happens on the screen. Yeah,
you're going to lag.
Yeah. So any input latency whatsoever could really just destroy your experience, especially on like a game like Doom, which is one of the games they led with in their presentation, that Doom Eternal is coming to Stadia.
Which is a big deal.
It's a big deal, yeah. And that means Bethesda has presumably partnered with them, which means that we could see things like Skyrim or Fallout or Wolfenstein or Rage, any of their games under their umbrella. So, I mean, that's a big deal. And then also like 2K and Take-Two, which, we saw NBA 2K19 was in the presentation. So they presumably, they might have the contact to get Red Dead on there or something like that, because that's the same company that
I feel
owns
like
them.
a big open world game would probably work best for something like that. Like I wouldn't want to compete like head to head against somebody. I would want something where I could just kind of take my time in case I have those latency issues.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect my game that much.
Yeah.
Well, they did Project Steam Project Stream. Steam is a different thing. Project Stream was the test they did last year, like in October, I think it was.
Right.
And they had it on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is, like you said, a big open world game where you just kind of explore and you're not competing against anybody. You're fighting guys, but it's not like super twitch reflex based like something like Doom would be. So it's they have a lot to prove with this platform. It very well could be the future. It could be a part of the future, or it could have no future whatsoever. It could easily be just that's another thing that Google tried and didn't succeed at, like Plus or Google Wave or Google Glass. I mean, it could join those very easily, or it could be the next big thing for gaming. I know that other companies are also trying game streaming platforms. Like Xbox has been teasing, I think it's called xCloud, that they've been doing. So and apparently that's going to start playing a part in how they can sell games.
Because everything I've been reading about them is like they're talking about like the diskless system, but like still having the console and everything. But just
the report
diskless.
is you would have a system that can do anything that's digital, but just wouldn't have a disk drive. It would be a cheaper version of the Xbox One or whatever the Xbox system is at the time that it comes out.
Yeah.
So it would be a cheaper version of that you just can't play discs on. But you could download games, you could stream games like Stadia is wanting you to do.
I mean, I don't see a problem with that. Like, I mean, because I just built a computer and like I didn't opt for any disk drive. Like,
I have no disk drive on my PC. I'm
not popping that in. And like the times I put in like a DVD to watch a movie in my Xbox has been pretty low because I have a DVD player.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really think that's like a high selling point for me.
Well, two things with what you just said, Giddles, was one that you're downloading the software to your computer, so you're running that, right?
Yeah.
This, you're not even running the software on your end. It's all coming to you, and then you have to send it back based on your controls. And I was
talking about Xbox.
That's what I'm talking about too.
No, but the Xbox is going to have a console,
right? You're talking.
You're going to download the game, and the game is going to run on the console, where the Stadium is going to run on like a cloud.
Yes, that's what I was saying.
That's the difference.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. Because it's not like where you're streaming Netflix or Amazon or everything. You're just pulling in. You're not also streaming back out. So that's the thing. That's a bigger hurdle than just the internet infrastructure for the United States to do this, because you got to be streaming in and out at the same time.
Yep. And I mean, there are some cool things about it, though. Like, there's a lot of potential there. Like the fact that you can just be watching somebody play on YouTube, and there's a button that just says play, and you click that. Like if I'm watching somebody play Assassin's Creed on YouTube, which, it's a huge portion of the audience now is people that just like to watch people play games.
Yeah, Twitch.
But if you're watching somebody on YouTube, there's a button that says play on Stadia or play now, and you click it and you're instantly in the game. Like I think they said like it can take like 3 or 5 seconds and you're instantly in the game. And I think you can even choose to jump exactly to where that person was, so you can play where they were.
Makes sense, because YouTube's owned.
See if I can do that.
Yeah, it makes sense. YouTube's owned by Google, so they can just do everything all in house and interconnect.
And you can also
everything.
have, if you're streaming a game, like if you're playing a game in front of people, like streaming it, you can also set up a queue in your YouTube channel where people can request to join you to play multiplayer with you, and you can join like a queue that. Like, all right, bring in the next guy. He'll play NBA with me or whatever. And I think that's a pretty cool feature too. Like just the integration has a lot of potential. But yeah, like I think that we need to learn a lot more about like, one, what games are coming to this thing, two, how are they getting these developers? Like, what are they promising these developers?
Right.
3, how much is this thing going to cost?
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to ask you about, because they didn't even tease like a vicinity of what the price could be. You know, they didn't have to give you the exact cost of the unit, but they could have said, we're aiming to have this unit under $500. You know, they didn't even give you a ballpark.
Though.
There's no unit, it's just the controller.
It's just over the browser. You don't even need their controller either. You can just play with an Xbox One controller.
Service. Then I said the wrong thing, because I'm thinking like how Apple does it when they say, our new phone that's coming out. If they didn't have an exact price, they say, within around the ballpark of $1,000 for this unit that's coming out. But yes, you're right. The streaming service, they didn't give you an idea of how much it will cost. If it's got to be a monthly or a yearly service, just like Xbox Live or PlayStation Network.
I think it actually might. I mean, there's it very well could be a subscription service like that, or it could just be a by title basis. Like, I want to play Assassin's Creed Odyssey. All right, that's $60, and I mean that might just be the way they do it. Or they could do subscription, or they could do that. I mean that would be the most logical way.
So like buying a movie, where you just buy the digital copy and you watch the movie, you would do the same thing with a video game.
Yeah, like think about Amazon. Like if you go on Amazon and you buy a movie digitally, you one click, now you own it in your library and you can watch it immediately. Like that's what I would imagine it could function like.
That's what I was thinking.
But I mean, that would make the most sense in terms of how these developers would get paid also, because how would they even divvy out the money of like, all right, if it's like, $20 a month and you can play every game in our library, like how would they divvy out the money? Like, is it the amount of time that you spent on each game, or would it be an equal thing for each one, or would it just be individual? It seems like it would be way too messy rather than just following the in place formats of like, all right, well, when somebody buys your game, you get this percentage of the sale and we get this percentage of the sale. That seems like the cleanest way to do it. But I mean, there's no information out there. They just keep, anytime anybody asks a question along these lines, there's just wait till June. We'll reveal more in June. So
yeah, I never thought about that payout thing though, but that almost like makes it like treat developers the way like Spotify treats musicians, and like
that's the scare.
Get all the money, and everyone underneath would be like, well, I need 10 million downloads to get 45 cents. And that would be really bad.
Well, that's the concern that a lot of people I think are having right now. A lot of people who are making games are like, all right, well, if this is the future, what does it look like for us? Like obviously we can get our game in front of more people in different ways, but like, how are we going to keep our doors open?
Yeah. How does it make it profitable for us where we can keep doing this, but not getting screwed?
I don't think you want because that's the thing. It's like Spotify, like, yeah, all right, you don't get as much money from record sales anymore, but you can still go on tour and make money through ticket sales. Like if you're a huge artist, but you don't really get that luxury if you're a game developer. So, it's going to be tricky how they navigate these waters. And I hope they figure out something cool, because it would be awesome if they could figure this out and make it work and make everybody happy. Like a great price point for consumers and a great payment structure for developers. It would be really cool to have new ways for people to make their living and new ways for people to consume their games. Because that's the other thing is like, to your point, Eric, you don't need a console. So like, I mean, I have friends right now who they're like, all right, should I buy a PS4 right now? And I'm like, no, just wait till the next generation at this point. Like you've held out this long, like we're probably a year or two away from the new consoles. Just hold off at this point. And they're like, oh, okay. But like, you don't need to buy the new console if this is like the way it is. Like you just need a computer that has a good internet connection, or a phone or a tablet or a smart TV, anything like that. And that lowers the cost of entry potentially. So, that's a good thing.
Well, let me ask you about this then. Financial details aside, if they sort out and figure out how they're going to handle the finances for developers, the storage cap for developers. Now we've heard in the past for certain games where they had to actually scale a game down or cut stuff out in order to fit on the disc in order to be played on a console. And then when PlayStation integrated the Blu-ray technology into their thing, it expanded it and made it a bit easier for game developers to increase their game world and their graphics and their story and their audio, all of those things. Mm-hmm. Now, you're at the point where even the Blu-ray they're maxing out, that they have to give you two like Red Dead Redemption 2 had 2 discs that you had to run to do a bunch of different things. And some games
still had to download for like 4 hours to get it to work.
Yeah, but other games are now putting out 2 Blu-rays in their packaging to compensate for all the data that they got to use to make these incredible games. So by doing this game model, which we'll get into the Apple stuff in a little bit, but this streaming game stuff, that's got to help developers, right? So that there's no storage cap on what they can do and they can just keep building and expanding.
I mean, in one sense, yeah, but on the other sense, like, I don't know if you have this problem, but I have Comcast internet, and in the past year and a half, they've started implementing a data cap for me. So it's like I get a terabyte of data every month in my home internet, which sounds like a lot, but like, I'm downloading games constantly.
Some of these games are, a couple gigs.
Oh, a couple. I wish. Like, these games are like, I mean, I
1
think
or 2 gigs.
I just
maybe.
downloaded MLB 19 on PS4 and it's 70 gigs.
Jesus.
So, I mean, and Red Dead, I think Red Dead, when I deleted it from my hard drive, so I was just completely out of space on my Xbox, is 110 gigs.
Wow.
So it's like if I download that, that's a tenth of my overall internet for this month.
So then what's the solution then? So you're putting out these streaming gaming services that you hope will take over and reinvent the industry. But then you have places, like you just said, around the world where your internet is capped. Your data plans are capped. You only have
positive to that is that you don't have to download the game ever, which is great. I mean, if I didn't have to download 110 gigabytes for Red Dead Redemption 2,
right,
I would be very happy about that. It would not.
It would
help me a lot. But then I'm streaming it the entire time, which uses data for every minute you're playing that game. You're using a portion of data. It may not be a ton at a time, but like, that game is huge. I think I put like nearly 100 hours into that game before I finished it. So it's like, I don't know like how the data would play out, but like, I know that if I'm streaming 4K, I had to cut my Netflix back down to 1080p because 4K video was just taking up so much of my data cap. Anytime I turn on anything on Netflix, it was just churning through my data. So
yeah,
if that's the case with gaming, like it could be a real problem for people like me who have a data cap.
Do people need 4K gaming? Like, is it that much better?
I mean, the HDR I think is more noticeable for the average person, which you don't need 4K for that. But yeah, it's 4K gaming is amazing. I have both a PS4 Pro and an Xbox One X for that purpose.
Oh, cool.
So if not just data capping for downloading, which will probably be a thing of the past if this thing does take off, but the basic up and down, like if you ever done a speed test on your PC or your phone or anything for your Wi-Fi or just testing your internet connection, some areas are only 150 up and down at most, which you think that's enough for anybody, but with everything streaming now and multiple devices in your household streaming, that bandwidth gets eaten up pretty quick. A lot of the cable companies now are offering 300 up and down, where for what we have for the studios and for businesses, they're doing gig lines or to replace the old T1 lines from back in the day. Some of these areas don't have that infrastructure. So if you got maybe you only have 100 up and down, that's the best you can do in your apartment building, because that's another issue. A lot of apartment buildings, you can't get upgrades to certain things because of the infrastructure of these buildings, and that takes a long time too. So you're putting the country and, well, I think it's what it's going to be released. The United States, Canada, and parts of Europe, I think they said will have it available.
Starting, yeah.
So in any of these places, you're already starting with sort of a handicap, because there's a lot of places that just won't have this full corporate speed of game streaming.
And the ironic part of all of this is Google just a few years ago was trying to improve the infrastructure, and they abandoned that initiative with fiber.
Fiber, right. I forgot all about that. See, another thing with Google that they come out and then they either shit the bed or they're like, nope, this isn't working, get rid of it.
Which sucks, because everybody I know that has fiber is like, this is the greatest thing I've ever experienced in my life. But like, they were just like, all right, yeah, Kansas City. All right, you're the last ones. So long, everyone else that was hoping to get it.
Boo, peace.
And they really left out of there pretty quick.
And then it's a matter of time before they're not building it anymore. And then there's a matter of time before they stop even servicing it. that eventually you'll have to abandon it and go back to your cable company or another internet provider to get all of this. So I guess to wrap the Google stuff up, that it's a great idea on paper, but the actual logistics of it is just the country may not be ready to handle it. They want it. It's not that we're not ready to handle it, but the internet speeds and the download rates and stuff, you're just not able to physically handle this right now.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that this could come out. It could revolutionize the industry. I mean, PlayStation's been doing game streaming as a service for the past, 4 years now? It's called PlayStation Now. It's the exact thing that, or maybe not the exact thing, but it's pretty damn close to what Google is promising. It's like, all right, I go on PlayStation Now. It says like, these are the games that I can choose from. I click this. All right, I'm streaming the game and playing at this. It's like PS3 and PS2 games. And I think some PS4 games are on there now as well. But like, it's just a subscription service that you choose which game you want to play and you stream it. It's not a local. I think that now you can do local downloads if you want it, or they're said that that's coming. But yeah, and it's like, oh, cool. They at the time they were like, this could be the future, and then like they released it, and people were like, no, we don't like streaming games. We like to have them locally because it plays better. And they're like, all right, we'll keep supporting it. If you want to play it, cool. If not, then here, we'll still sell you games.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to be good for people who are wanting to maybe get into the gaming industry and don't have don't have a full system, don't want to fully commit, or don't have a PC. But who knows? Like I feel like we were all pretty skeptical on the Switch, and that's like a household thing now, so anything could happen. Yeah,
I mean, you touched on something else there, that like you don't need a beefy PC to play a game on Stadia, which is I think awesome. Like, I mean, I just bought an enormously powerful gaming rig about this time last year, and I love it. I love being able to play any game that comes out now at like high settings or maximum settings. But it would be cool if I like, all right, I have this 10-year-old MacBook. As long as it can run Chrome on it, I can play a game potentially up to 4K resolution. I mean, my screen on a 10-year-old MacBook Pro probably wouldn't be able to handle 4K, but 60 frames per second at the highest resolution my screen can handle. That's pretty awesome. I don't need to have a $2,000 gaming rig just to handle those types of things.
Yeah, and it could be good, because then people might try it out and be like, what, maybe I want to get a better, maybe I want to get into, maybe who knows? It could open up new things.
And the fact that you can share the state of your game, so like you can actually like go and be like, all right, well, I'm playing NBA 2K19 and we're down by 5 with 2 minutes left. This is a really cool situation that like other people should be able to experience the situation. Or I'm going into this boss with like this boss battle in Doom, and I only have a certain number of bullets or a certain gun. I'm going to save this state of my game and share it with friends, and I can share it to them, and they can click into it, and they're immediately playing in the same scenario I was playing in with the same weapons and everything that I had. That's a super cool concept. Like I can just immediately, like, it's just like a copy and paste of a link.
Like imagine doing that, like that guy who beat Dark Souls, like without taking a hit of damage, and he shared his save point right before the last boss. He's like, okay, go ahead. Like no pressure. Like I did it all the way up to here. Now let's just see if you can hit one guy.
Just finish it.
Finish
the fight.
Like that'd be cool. So what other like cool stuff is coming out? I saw a teaser today, or at least a teaser reveal for the new Borderlands. It looks like that's going to be revealed. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, Gearbox. We're recording this on Wednesday, so Thursday, Gearbox is having a panel at PAX East, and they're teasing all kinds of game announcements. And one they've been teasing very heavily has been Borderlands. Like they've been posting pictures of like the characters from Borderlands and all kinds of stuff. And they've never outright said like, all right, Borderlands is coming. And then this morning they posted like a YouTube video that's just like Borderlands teaser. And it's like, oh, all right. Well, now they're not even being subtle anymore.
Yeah. They're pretty much like, get ready. Like because I was looking at them like, that looks like Borderlands, but they haven't like, oh shit, maybe it's coming out.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of been like cryptic about it, but like, yeah, like I said, now they're just coming right out and like, yep, Borderlands teaser. I'm excited. I love Borderlands. Like Borderlands 1 and 2 were awesome. Borderlands, the pre-sequel, which actually wasn't made by Gearbox, the creators, that was made by, I think, 2K Australia. It was just like a spin-off where you're on the moon.
Oh, cool.
It was all right. It wasn't as good as 1 and 2, but and then there's Tales from the Borderlands, which was done by Telltale,
which is defunct.
What was that?
Which is defunct.
Yeah, rest in peace, Telltale. But that was one of their better series. Like, and it was cool. Like, I was like, I don't care about the story of Borderlands, and I played that. I'm like, oh, I kind of care about the story of Borderlands.
Well, once you hear the story, you're like, okay, it's
that was just never the thing that drew me to it. It was always like, all right, get the best loot. All right, shoot all the monsters. Okay, that's all I need. That was
somebody
fun.
bought me the Borderlands 1 and 2. Like whatever what is it, the Platinum Edition or Anniversary Edition that has all the stuff with it, right?
Yeah.
But they're the 360 copies. And when Xbox One came around, they had that whole period of reverse gaming where if you had the old games, they would, allow it to be available on your Xbox currently. And I don't think I saw Borderlands ever come up. So I have these 2 games I've never opened, and I don't know if I can actually use them on the Xbox One.
Borderlands 1 you for sure can, because I have it on my Xbox One.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the free download from the Xbox store like last year or something like that. They put it out for free, and I got it, so you should be able to run Borderlands 2.
Okay.
Yeah, Borderlands 2 is a different thing though, because they released a collection that was 2 and pre-sequel as like their own thing on current systems. So I don't know if they ever made that backwards compatible, since you can technically buy it for Xbox One.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, either way, there are ways to play every Borderlands game on Xbox One and PS4. Well, maybe not Borderlands 1 on PS4 because they don't do backwards compatibility.
Okay. I'll have to go take a look and see if I can re-explore that. Apple just had their big conference this past week, releasing a bunch of new fancy shiny things that everybody's excited about, with Apple Plus TV coming out in the fall, and as you said earlier, their digital magazine service that's going to come out. But they also are now putting their toe into the waters of digitally streaming games. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, they were more vague with like the details of what this is. From what I understand,
was it reactionary to Google's thing, or do you think they were actually working?
It's been long planned.
Okay,
because you can tell because they have some legends of the industry working with them, but it seems like this is less of a game streaming platform and more of a like we want people, because like they were saying something about how people who buy games or download games from their app store, the vast majority of the time, they're only downloading the free games. And if you charge any amount of money, it's like people are like, oh, that's way too much. I'm just going to download a free game instead. So they're trying to attract more premium style.
People suck. Because there's some games where I'm like, oh, this is only $5. I'll spend the money if it seems appealing, or if it's a game that I was like, you know what? I saw that game back in the day and I never got a chance to play it. I don't mind spending the money. I don't want to spend $60 for an old game when it's been way out of market for so long, but I don't mind, around anything up to like $10-12. I don't mind throwing the money at the game.
Oh, for sure. And I think, what they're doing is they're trying to appeal to the people who don't feel that same way. So what they're doing is they're setting up a subscription service, which was the third subscription service they introduced over the course of that press conference, mind you. So they had Apple News Plus, Apple TV Plus, and then this was Apple Arcade. They didn't give any pricing details, but basically like you would get exclusive access to all these like premium style games that wouldn't be like the free to play with microtransactions. They would be actual like completely new, but also like premium price point, premium style games, but they would be free for you because you're already paying the subscription price. So that's where it differs, is these are games you would actually download to your phone from what I understand. And they're games that like before Apple Arcade exists, you would just, you'd pay like $10 for this game or whatever. But that raises the question of like, all right, well, why don't you just let me pay $10 for this game? Like I don't want another subscription service. I have enough of those. That's another thing I tweet a lot about. You mentioned my tweets earlier today. Another thing I tweet a lot about is how many freaking subscription services I have. Like I don't need another $10 coming out of my bank account every single month. But yeah, so like that's the big thing. They had like Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is the creator of the Final Fantasy series, is working on a game for Apple Arcade, which is super awesome. Like that's great that guy's making a new what appears to be an RPG for for Apple. Like, that's awesome. And like, they're bringing a bunch of really cool looking indie titles over. It looks like they have a great stable of games, but I don't know, like, we don't know enough of the details to really understand. We don't know price point. We don't know the complete structure of it. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely going harder, which it's amazing to me that Apple and Google both have taken this long to go into it, because that is clearly where they make their most money in these app stores, whether you're talking Google Play on Android or the App Store on iPhone. They're making so much money from games, whether it's through microtransactions or just people buying games, that like it's almost like they were content with just letting that go rather than kind of diving further into what like this extremely profitable industry is.
Well, it's interesting too, because it feels like they're both kind of like getting into the main part of this like really late in the game, because you're going against like Sony, you know, Microsoft and Nintendo. Those are the huge names, like you're competing against them. But I feel like Google kind of has the advantage in a way, because you're going to have all of those games that you could play on those stuff, where it feels like Apple is just like upgraded, better pictured apps. Like I don't know what the difference is going to be.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Apple does, like how far they stretch like what a game is on their platform, because you know, you've had it before where it's like, oh, now you can play Minecraft on your phone. I'm like, that sounds cool. Just have Minecraft anywhere, and you play it and you're like, all right, this kind of sucks. Like I want to go back to having a controller.
Yeah.
Or like a fighting game. Like whenever they release fighting games on your phone, it's like, oh, that'd be cool to have Mortal Kombat on my phone. And it's like, oh, no, it's not.
Yeah, my friend was playing PUBG on the phone, and I was like, how do you even do that? Like, it's so slow, and we're in like this basement. Like, there's no reception. Like, you cannot possibly be there.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where you get so used to playing a game with a controller, because that's how it's been for almost 40 years. You play with a controller. Then if you're a PC gamer, you're used to a keyboard or mouse, but it's still something physically that you're holding onto and sort of controlling what you're doing. When you're playing phone games, you're swiping your finger on glass and tapping glass. It doesn't give you the feel, and I think that's what affects your coordination when you're trying to play these kind of games on that kind of platform.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's just jarring, you know? Like you don't want to have, like, your hand kind of slips off of the screen. Because like when you have a controller in your hand, you have those buttons, so you're like, all right, I know exactly where my finger is right now, or my thumb.
When you're trying you're trying to shoot for a target or get a headshot, you know, you have to be very precise. You have the satisfaction of the coordination and the feel of using it on a keyboard and mouse, or on doing it on the controller. Just touching a glass surface, it's just you're smearing your window essentially. It's like you don't really get the feel of, you know, the accuracy of trying to hit a target or hit a headshot or do whatever you need to do with just a Surface tablet.
Yeah, and I mean, but like developers are figuring things out. Before it used to be like, all right, your options are this game that's just brought over from consoles, like GTA San Andreas with the touchscreen controls, or like Candy Crush, where it's just like a match 3 where you have to pay to refill your energy. Like developers are figuring out
$10 for a hammer that you can only use once and then doesn't go to the next round with you.
Yeah.
Fucking rip-off game.
Some of the games I've played the most in recent years have been these innovative, or at least well suited for phone experiences. Like I played the hell out of Pokemon Go. I've kind of slowed on it a little bit in recent months, especially with winter.
I still see people playing it, especially walking around Manhattan. If I go over near Madison Square Park, or if you're just walking around MSG or into Times Square, I can see people holding their phone up, and you look over and you see that they're playing Pokemon Go. It's not as much
hardcore players.
It's not as much as it used to see, but people are still playing that game.
Yeah, I mean it's still a very popular game. But it always slows down in the winter months, you know, because you have to go outside.
It's cold.
But there's another game called Marvel Strike Force. It's just like it's a Marvel character collection game where it's like turn-based RPG style combat, and it's awesome. Like it's a game I play probably the most out of any game aside from maybe Overwatch.
I think that's the game we played the demo for at Comic-Con, Eric.
That was Marvel Battle Lines, I think. That was the
Battle Lines. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Strike Force is my personal favorite. I love that game. I'm addicted.
Strike Force, Tito Santana, and Rick Martel.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you ever play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes?
Never did.
Okay, it's based.
That's the
it's
game.
Like that.
Isn't that the game that Kevin and Matt played religiously for so many years? Wasn't that the online game?
Most likely, it's Star Wars and Matt. So yeah.
Anything else you can tell us about Apple Arcade, or is that pretty much all we know about these platforms right now?
There's so much we don't know about it.
Yeah, that was the feeling I was getting reading all the recaps of everything. I was like, there's not really filling in a lot of gaps other than what they were focusing on Apple TV with. One, they announced that they spent almost $1 billion on programming with 20 shows already produced as far as drama and comedy go. They got Steven Spielberg and Oprah doing documentaries and specialty programming for all of this stuff.
Yeah, which makes it like interesting when Steven Spielberg was railing against Netflix a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, okay.
All right,
yeah,
now we know why you
Oscars. It was because you're getting a deal with Apple, you son of a bitch.
That's exactly what it is. But they've at least announced a start time. Like, I think it's starting in the fall, just like Disney's thing starting in the fall.
That's another subscription service to add.
Yeah.
Seriously, like subscription services are so much more money than cable is now.
I know.
Like 40 of them, and each one's $10. It's like $4,000 a month to watch TV.
You know what this is? This is
and you still can't find anything to watch.
This is Comcast and Optimum as they're falling into the volcano or to the fire pit as they're melting, pointing out, you said, when you're talking about, cutting the cord. We warned you this would happen. You made this happen. You brought this upon yourselves. It's all you. And then you see the finger wagging as it goes into the lava.
Yeah.
I mean, that event was super weird, though, right? Like the Apple event.
Oh yeah.
Like that.
They've all been weird since they had the Apple stylus, and everyone's like, what are they coming out with every year?
Well, this one was super weird because they're just like, hey, let's just trot out different celebrities to talk about things they're involved with. Like, all right, here's Jennifer Aniston. All right, cool. Now Jason Momoa. All right, here's Big Bird.
It's like when The Simpsons started going downhill and they started relying on guest celebrities instead of their product.
Yeah, when guests were the storyline instead of, the guest being incorporated into what they were doing. It's, this week's guest is this. Let's build a story around this guy.
But it's the same thing. You're trying to use Oprah and Spielberg to sell your shit. Just tell me what you're selling.
I love every time. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You have to admit that green room must have been killer.
Oh my God.
That event.
That was the most expensive green room. There was probably like 3/4 of the world's entire wealth in that green room.
So I bet you it wasn't even green rooms. It was a backstage area like any arena or any arena or the Garden would have. It's just a fleet of limos, all tinted, or black SUVs, and then a page would come over or a stagehand knock on the window. Mr. Spielberg, your segment's up now, and he's escorted like he's walking to a prize fight. He's got a whole posse around him. He gets on the stage, does his presentation, walks right back into the car. Car takes off. Miss Winfrey, your turn now. She walks up there, and then one by one, the limos are leaving as each presentation's done because they're not staying for the whole thing.
Pretty much. No way.
I love also, too, when everybody was getting excited for this Apple press conference, everyone just automatically assumes that there's another phone coming. That's where they're at now. It's like, the new phone's coming out. The new phone just came out a year ago. Nope, this is a brand new phone. And then there's no phones.
I mean, their phones are always released in like October, so there's no reason they would announce it now.
But everyone does that for people.
Yeah.
Like
you're going to catch it off guard and do it different this year. Nope.
It's like, I just got my new phone in November. Nope, brand new phone. Got to upgrade to now the 11's coming out. Wait, no, they're still working on the 8 and the 10. They're not doing
and they have
the 11.
to stay on a semi-regular cycle because people have those 2-year commitments,
Right.
So they can't disrupt that cycle unless they have some new way to like, all right, we're going to pay off your remaining phone if you want to make the leap now. But like, they're not going to do that. I never even
thought of that aspect of it. Like, I didn't even think about that. Like, yeah, people getting their 2-year plan. They're obviously not going to release a new one in March.
Yeah, like they have to stay on the same cycles because that's what everybody else is on.
Yeah, otherwise it would just be mass like hysteria. People like, what do I do?
They just revealed a new iPad 2 weeks ago, and it came out like earlier this week. So yeah. I mean, they the only thing left was the new like a new Apple Watch or a new MacBook, which I think new MacBooks are still like. I think they just revealed those late last year, so it's like, all right, well.
Did they introduce a new Mac Pro? I thought maybe they did or no.
Not at this event.
Oh, okay.
I'm really aggravated with the new MacBooks because every time I'm in a mall somewhere,
and you get a PC so much cheaper.
Yeah,
that's
one
why
are
I got
expensive.
a PC.
They're very expensive, but if I happen to be in a mall, I'll always go into the Apple store just to play around with stuff and look what's there. But Apple, it is their brilliance. It's really scummy that they do this, but it is brilliant as far as business goes, that they take all the basic stuff that you've been accustomed to having with a laptop and removing it and then selling it back to you as an add-on because they've shrunk everything down. There's one USB port on these things because they're so rail thin. They don't have the DVD ROMs anymore or the Blu-ray ROMs for you anymore. They barely have the SD card, which I'm expecting that's going to be a lightning drive at some point where you have to plug that in if you just want to use your SD card for anything. And they have their own exclusive cables, which I'm hearing they're going to change up again for the next phone is another thing that's been going around, that you have the little lightning dongle thing that you plug in to the bottom of the phone if you want to plug an actual headphone or a microphone into it, or just use the one for charging the cable, that they're going to change the head again.
Yeah, well, they already made that change with the iPad Pros. We just got a new iPad Pro, and it's a completely different cable. So
yeah, and that costs you $80. If you didn't
this
get
is why I stopped buying Apple products like years ago. It's just it's so exclusive and expensive, and it's not worth it.
No. I mean, there is some convenience to it that if you don't know a lot about computers, it's very plug, play, press, go. It's very simple. It's just difficult when you try to do more creative stuff, which Mac used to be. The reason you would go to a Mac is for creativity, for art, for Photoshop, for music, for all those things. But a lot of the programs that have been showing up on PC as of late have either matched or have actually gone further than the programs that are available on the Mac. With Adobe Premiere, you can get it on the Mac, but you can get it easily because now it's a cloud service program too, all the Adobe stuff. You can get it right on your PC, the same quality as you would get it for the Mac, and the same convenience and ease that it's like Gittle said, it's like, well, why do I need the Mac anymore?
You don't. That's the thing. I think people are just used to it. They got accustomed to that lifestyle and they can't break out.
I broke out of the on the computer side. So I have a PC now running Windows 10 and everything, and I love it. I really do like it. But I adore my iPhone, and I still like my iPad. So those are the only things that I'm still hanging on. I mean, I'm an Apple Music subscriber instead of Spotify.
Right.
I just like the layout and the way it integrates well into my music library. So I mean, those are my things that I'm holding out on. But yeah, I used to be Apple across the board, and now it's just like iPhone and iPad pretty much. Oh, I have an Apple Watch too, so never mind. I'm completely.
But I feel like that makes a lot more sense because, like, for me on my phone, I don't keep a lot of like music and stuff like that, so I don't have a lot of stuff synced to like a library. So I think that
I keep thousands of songs on my phone.
Well, I just use my Spotify if I'm walking around because I want to listen to like different things, and I still have like an old school iPod that like it charges and works, and I can't update it, but I have all my songs on there.
That's the balance I'm still trying to figure out, because all I have on my phone are photos or podcasts. That's all that's on there. I don't have any of my music on my phone. I do have an old school, I think their last generation that they put out, iPod, which has 128 or 124 gig on there, and I'm using 80 gigs of it already, and that's hooked into my car with my physical media that I take off, or my, the songs I actually have on my hard drives in my laptop that are updated to that iPod, so I can use it in the car instead of, because I don't use satellite or anything else. But I would like to walk around sometimes and use my music, and I had to get an unlimited plan on my phone just so I could do it through YouTube, or I was using Spotify for a little while. But sometimes there's a lot of stuff that's not on Spotify that I was looking for, and the suggestions are nice for people's playlists, and they advise you on other things. But I maybe have to give that Apple Music thing a look.
I love it also because you can choose to either stream it like you do in Spotify, or you can download it, which I like to do because I like having all the music on my phone, because I don't have great reception at my gym, which is when I'm mostly using my music. And two, like I travel a lot, so when I'm on a plane, I don't really have access to Wi-Fi most of the time. So, or if I do, it's garbage.
They still have that issue where when Apple Music came out, that it would delete your library and then re-image it to your thing.
It sucks real bad. I hate that about it. Like I've lost my entire library a couple times because, like, if you unsubscribe from Apple Music, it just wipes your entire music library because they're like, oh, we don't like. I don't know why they can't figure out which ones you've added through Apple Music. And
I think they know. They just don't. They just want to fuck you over. They're like,
but I mean, I signed back up knowing full well that would happen if I unsubscribe, and I'm like, look, I'm saving so much money by doing Apple Music because I was like, the albums are $10 a pop, and Apple Music's like $10 a month. So like I was buying like 4 or 5 albums a month. So I'm saving like a ton of money by doing this, and I get all the albums. Plus I get to like download albums of artists I've never heard of, but I've like heard a 10-second clip of their song and I like it. So I'm going to download their entire discography.
And what sucks too is with any of the streaming services, because if you have music from bands that never really made it to a major label, they were independent releases, that it blows that stuff out too.
Yeah, there's a way around it on Apple Music where you can add it manually through iTunes on your computer to your iCloud library. This is something that I finally figured out. So that was driving me insane because like if I really like a band, I go and explore like their live recordings, their like B-sides, their covers and stuff that you can't find on like a typical iTunes album. So there's a way in iTunes you can add it to your iCloud music library, and then you can download it through your phone that way because it's a part of your iCloud library now. So there are ways around that, and I lost my entire library trying to figure it out, but I finally figured it out, and I think I'm in a good spot now with it.
All right, I'll have to give it another look because that when that news came out, that turned me off completely from Apple Music. I said, nope, not losing my physical collection of stuff that I spent, because I got rid of all my CDs that I had over the years. Jesus, at least 13
long time
years
ago, because you were offering me them. I was like, I don't want
13, 15 years ago that I did that. I sat there and I ripped everything into iTunes and pulled it out of iTunes and put it in my own hard drive folders, all of that stuff where it's organized, and I hold on to it because there's a lot of old punk and ska stuff. Some of it was vinyl transfers that you're not going to be able to buy off of iTunes. They just didn't have those kind of deals. So I didn't want to put my whole library in there. And then, well, no, we recognize this stuff, delete it. We don't know what this is, delete it. And then you're sitting there screaming at it. It's like they're making these decisions for you, and I didn't want that.
Yeah. Screw that.
Yeah. Last thing before we go, Brian, Fortnite, the game that constantly is reinventing itself and doing all these unique things. Not too long ago, they seemed to be the only game that could bridge the gap between PlayStation and Xbox when they finally got PlayStation on board to actually play against people on servers who were on the Xbox system.
Crossplay.
Yeah. Because before that was Xbox and Nintendo made a unique deal where you were playing against people on the Switch, and then also the availability of the Xbox Arcade was going to be coming to the Switch, which nobody thought that would even ever happen with a cross-platform kind of deal. But Fortnite seems to be bringing all these platforms together.
Well, it's a larger initiative in the industry. Like that was also a part of Google Stadia's presentation, was like, all right, we will fully support cross-play initiatives.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
In order for you to support cross-play, both parties in that transaction need to play ball. So like that's the thing, is PlayStation has been so reluctant to play ball with any of these other companies.
Yeah.
So like Microsoft and Nintendo are like kind of forging this weird coalition at this point where all their games, or not all their games, but a lot of their games are cross-play. And not only that, but now Microsoft is even bringing some of its stuff over to Nintendo. Like they just announced that Cuphead is coming over, which is like a 2D action game that people really love. It's like in like the 20s cartoon style art.
Yeah, the old animations that like World War II people would see during their movie screenings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's a great game. People love it, and it's coming to Switch. It was an Xbox and PC exclusive to this point. But yeah, it's coming to Switch now, and there's even going to be Xbox Live functionality built into it. And a few months ago, there were reports that Xbox Live is going to be coming to Switch. which I wrote a whole.
That's what it was. It wasn't Xbox Arcade. It was Xbox Live. Okay.
Yeah, Xbox Live would be amazing if they could implement some of the features. I think that I wrote a whole piece about this on GameInformer.com, but basically, I think that Xbox Live could plug a lot of the holes that Nintendo's online services today have. For instance, and I don't know any details about like what version of Xbox Live or what is coming to Switch, but two of the weakest components about Switch's online service is the friends list. Like you still have to use friend codes, which is like the most archaic way to do anything in the industry right now. It's like, all right, I have to send you my 10 or 15 character code and you have to type it in exactly as it is. That would be better with Xbox Live where you just have usernames, and then also just the fact that, there's not a whole lot of features on Nintendo Switch Online. You're expected to pay like $20 or $25 a year to do Nintendo Switch Online. And what do you get in return? You get to play games online, which you were able to do for free before they brought this in. But you also get to play some NES games and potentially some SNES games down the line
on the Xbox
as a part of the subscription on Switch.
Okay.
So do you think now there's like 20-something NES games that you can play as like a part of like this separate app that's on the Switch. Like it's like a game. It's like NES Online or something like that.
With that, every time I go to my buddy's house, he has like a new one download, but they're all like the classic games.
Yeah. So that's the positives of that, but also Microsoft has that streaming service they've been wanting to do,
right.
xCloud that I brought up earlier. Imagine if they let you stream, like they did a partnership with Nintendo where you can stream Xbox games on your Switch.
That's
what I
was going to ask. Will the reverse? Do you think the reverse could happen where there's some old or some of the Nintendo library will be available on the Xbox service?
I think that's probably less likely. I think more likely would be Game Pass.
Boo.
Game Pass, which is Microsoft's subscription service they have where you pay like, I think it's $10 a month or something like that. And you get access to like all these different games.
And that's $10 on top of your Xbox Live subscription.
It is. But like there's like hundreds of games you can choose from. A lot of them are like recent games too. But like the ability to bring that over to Switch, something like that would do wonders for Switch, because like that's another disadvantage that the Switch has right now is it's underpowered like completely when compared to the PS4 and the Xbox One. But through streaming stuff, streaming platforms and streaming services, you could kind of leverage that and make it a little bit more powerful or seem a little bit more powerful because you can run these games not locally. So they're really kind of if this does go to the extent that it could go, like there are some really cool possibilities between this impending partnership or relationship between Microsoft and Nintendo.
Do you think, because I saw too when that deal or that integration was happening, and I think your article was the first one I read on it, but going even further, reading other pieces that are popping up, do you think there's anything to the fact that some people think that Microsoft may purchase Nintendo somewhere down the line?
I don't think so anytime soon. I think that they just have a healthy relationship.
Yeah, because Nintendo's not hurting right now.
What's up?
I said because Nintendo is not hurting right now.
No, not at all. Like, they had a rough go for Wii U, and the second half of the Wii wasn't great for them either. But Nintendo's killing it now. They've been the highest selling piece of hardware for the longest time now. Like ever since Switch came out, it's just been killing it.
Matt, our buddy Matt OG, is doing his live Twitch channel, and not too long ago he hooked up his Switch to the Switch and he was streaming it. And I'm looking at the game, and I said, "What game is this? I didn't remember this Mario game." And he goes, "Oh, it's Super Mario Wii U." And I was thinking about it, and I'm watching him play, and I said, "Okay, this game is really good, but people didn't get a chance to play any of these games because everybody hated the Wii U. It wasn't worth them getting it, and it just kind of failed. So all these games they put out for the Wii U now are getting a second chance on the Switch." And I was like, awesome. Oh my God, this is amazing. Now they're going to bring Mario Maker. There's a new Mario Maker that's coming out, which will be available on the Switch, which I'm very excited about. But I can go back into their catalog now, and as they're releasing them, get some of these Wii U games that nobody got a chance to play and play them on the Switch and actually enjoy them.
Yeah, they're either getting successors, as is the case with Splatoon and Mario Maker, or they're getting re-releases like they got with Super Mario or New Super Mario Brothers U, Mario Kart 8, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, which is a very underrated game. Yes, I mean, they're definitely aware that not many people played. I mean, it was by far the worst selling home console in Nintendo's history, and I think it may have only been beaten out as the worst selling platform in Nintendo history by the Virtual Boy.
Everything.
I think I had the Virtual Boy too.
Everything was just red.
I think I did. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah, it was like putting on 3D goggles to like look at a calculator. Like I don't understand why I had that. It was so bad.
It's like all red inside.
Oh, yeah.
All the graphics were like red lines.
Yeah, you put it on and like, wait a minute, am I the Predator? What's going on here?
Yeah, it was so bad. You had to like sit at a table with it. Like you couldn't even like, you couldn't do anything.
Yeah, it was the worst idea that Nintendo's ever had, arguably.
Yeah.
Maybe the Power Glove.
So now that Google has initiated in their reveal of Stadia that they're open to cross-platform gaming, do you think that's going to be the future now? Now that PlayStation has opened it up with Fortnite, do you think they're going to be more tolerant of doing this now as a partnership? Not just because the fans have been wanting it, because they've been wanting it forever, but now it seems to be a means of survival with these game streaming services coming out now that could put an end to actually owning a physical console. And that's what only, other than certain exclusive games partnerships that PlayStation and Sony had, Sony was really banking on their actual hardware to differentiate themselves from Xbox. And if that goes away, what's Sony going to do?
I mean, Sony still has, Sony and Nintendo both have amazing, robust first-party studios. Microsoft is working on bolstering theirs. So, I mean, those are going to be the like key selling points right there for each of the individual platforms. I think that Sony, I think they caved more than they embraced the cross-platform for Fortnite. I think that it's still going to be like pulling teeth getting them to do cross-platform. They seem like they want nothing to do with the other consoles. They don't want to play nice with Nintendo or Microsoft. I don't think this is gonna be the new standard. I think that Nintendo and Microsoft is just a super cool relationship that may or may not lead anywhere. And Sony is kind of still doing its own thing. And they're still the leaders this generation. I mean, they still have arguably the best first party exclusives like Spider-Man, God of War. Like they have so many great titles this generation.
I would really want to play that Spider-Man game. It looks so much fun.
You haven't played it yet?
No, I have an Xbox and I have a PC, so I haven't.
Yeah, same here.
It's a little redundant at this point because all the Xbox games are coming out on Windows 10 now too. Like all the first party ones anyway. Like that you even buy it on Xbox, you get it on your PC most of the time.
Really?
So if you go to like if you bought like Gears of War 4, if you go to your Windows 10 App Store, you might have a download of that for your PC.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Check that out if you've linked your same Microsoft account.
Yeah, I do.
Like I had like 10 or 15 games in my thing. It's called Play Anywhere. It's like an initiative that Xbox introduced about 2 years ago now.
Oh, sweet. I'm gonna check that out because I might have some stuff.
Do it.
A bunch of games.
That would be great.
Get my Titanfall 2 to move over.
With that music, that means we need to wrap up here. Let's go around and do the plugs. Giddles, what do you have?
I got Giddle Base on the Twitter, Instagram, and Xbox Live, and my cooking show will be launching around mid-April or so keep an eye on it.
Our guest has been Brian Shea from Game Informer magazine, giving you all this information, all these updates, because we had to go heavy. All this came out within the span of a week. So there was a lot to digest, and a lot of people they're probably still confused. Like, I just listened to this whole show. I still don't fully grasp what all these companies are doing. Don't worry. The experts, like Brian, still don't know either. They're just going based on the little tidbits that these companies are actually giving us right now. But Brian, we turn to you. What are your plugs? What do you got to get out there?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Brian P. Shea. Follow us on Twitter at Game Informer, and we're doing Instagram now. So Game Informer Magazine is our Instagram handle. So follow us there. We're doing super cool stuff. Whether it's like celebrating game anniversaries by showing some cool stuff we have around our office, showing off our video game vault, or even just like pictures from like events that we go to. All kinds of stuff going up on our Instagram. Once again, it's Game Informer Magazine on Instagram. And then, of course, GameInformer.com for daily news, and then Game Informer Magazine for monthly goodness in your mailbox.
All right. For me, it's E-Rock Radio across the board on social media, but more importantly, the show, It's Erik Nagel across the board on social media. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're almost past the 1,000 subscriber threshold, which helps us open up to a couple other things that we want to do. So if you have an account, you have a Gmail account, whatever, go over there, subscribe, set it and forget it. You never have to interact with the channel. Just give us the free subscription click, and it would do us a lot of good if you could. 651-SMITHERS is the phone number, 651-764-8437 if you want to leave a message to be used in future broadcasts. I think that's about it. Until the next time, everybody.
Be excellent to each other.
And have a wonderful time.
And we'll be seeing you.
It's Erik Nagel.
Batman is so much cooler than James Bond.
What are you talking about? 007 has all those gadgets.
Batman has a utility belt.
007 has a fancy car.
Batman has the Batmobile.
007 gets all the ladies.
Batman has Robin. We get ESPN, right?
Alas, we're out of time.
Follow It's Erik Nagel on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. For ways to listen to the show, go to itseriknagel.com. And remember to tell two friends so they can tell two friends.
And they can tell two friends.
And they can tell two
And those
friends.
two friends.
And those two friends can tell two more friends.
Well, you get